the timetable and the elements that came out of the Vienna meeting were very impressive. But it was, as I wrote in a recent column, it's a wonderful play without actors or a stage. But as a play, it's just terrific. It's perfect. If you can get the actors to buy into it, the people on the ground in Syria, it might work. And a critical issue is the fate of Assad. It's not just Assad, it's Assad and his ruling clique, the family, the Alawite-dominated group of people around him who are not all Alawites, but the minority, family-based, security-anchored rule, which is the tradition in virtually the entire Arab world. Since the 1970s, since the early 70s, that's when his father, Hafiz al-Assad, came into power, all of the Arab countries were either monarchies, in which you had family rule, which was broadly seen to be legitimate. In most Arab countries, the monarchies are seen to be legitimate, and people want more human rights and more participation, but people were not challenging the monarchies too much. But in all the other Arab countries, you had family-run, military-based rule. And when you go across the Arab world, who ran these countries? The Assad family, the Gaddafi family, Ahmed Ali Abdullah Saleh in Yemen, Omar Hassan al-Bashir in Sudan, Zain al-Abidin bin Ali in Tunisia, Abdelaziz Bouteflika and the army in Algeria. The president of Algeria can barely breathe, and he is still, in theory, in charge of, and he was just re-elected. He could barely get the vote into the box, but he was re-elected. So what we're seeing is this is part of the problem. We've had these 40, 50 years, and it's really since the mid-70s when the security state, the family-run security state, Saddam Hussein, the Assads, the other, when this kind of rule captured the Arab states as power, citizens were turned into consumers, and a developmental state that had existed from the 20s to the 80s, national development states in the Arab world, turned into family-run security states or police states. That was the critical transition from the mid-70s to the mid-80s, and ever since we've had this phenomenon. So it's not only Assad, it's not just Bashar al-Assad, but it's the concept of a family-run, militarily based, non-accountable, unelected government that is accountable to the consent of the government of its own citizens. That Tunisia is the only place that has started to move in that direction. Assad is a symbol of this problem, and I think the Russians and the Iranians in particular are perfectly willing to have a different leader and even a power-sharing system as long as they maintain some links to the Syrian state. And this is one of the great unknown factors. I believe that a majority of Syrians don't want the system to stay like it is. They want a transition to something more participatory, more pluralistic, more democratic, more humane. And the Alawites, the minority Alawites who have had disproportionate power will continue to play a role in some kind of power-sharing system. You're likely to see in Libya, in Yemen, in Iraq, and in Syria, you're likely to see significant decentralization as one of the responses to the unsustainable, unsatisfying last half-century of top-heavy, family-run, militarily-based rule. But we'll have to see, because in the end, it's only the Arab citizen who has the legitimacy, the moral authority, and ultimately the power to make these decisions.